Hey, it's Brock here from Rock Hill Farms, and last week I got a new firewood bundler. Today I want to do some time test and find out all of the information that's important for me to know, or maybe important for you to know if you're wanting to go into firewood bundling as a way to make some extra money. So I'm going to completely geek out on how many bundles are in a cord, how many cords per hour, the cubic feet of a bundle, all of that information. But I'm going to overlay that over the video. I'm just going to jump in right now, start a timer, and start bundling this wood up so that you can see exactly what I do, and I'll put all the information over the top. So let's get started. My first takeaway from bundling is that it's probably worth it to wear gloves. When I'm splitting firewood, I usually don't wear gloves because you're handling the rounds a lot more, and the bark isn't going to give you splinters. But as I was doing this, the actual temperature outside was 38 degrees, and it wasn't very comfortable on my hands. Not a big deal, just the first thing I noticed. The next thing I noticed is that it's hard to make bundles exactly the same size when you're dealing with irregular pieces. If you fill the loading tray all the way to the top, like I was doing the other day, it's not 1 cubic feet, it's 1 1/3 cubic foot. So there's a mark a little ways down that represents 1 cubic foot. Actually, it's a hole drilled in the back of the plate. So that is a bundle that is 12 inches wide, 16 inches long, and 9 inches tall. And in theory, this basket should hold 42 of those because it's 1/3 of a cord, so it should be 42 cubic feet. But as I said a minute ago, I had a hard time making my bundles come out exactly 1 cubic foot. And I figured I'd rather make them a little bit bigger than promised instead of a little bit smaller. So I did not get 42 bundles. The next thing that I learned is it's a lot harder to make these bundles if your pieces are irregular shape. And I wasted a fair amount of time looking for pieces that fit into the opening I had left in my bundle. That goes back to something I said the other day, which is you want to choose a tote of firewood to make your bundles out of that has uniformly split pieces. Makes it much easier to get good bundles. Now, when I came out here to start today, I noticed that the bundles I did the other day were a little bit loose, and I thought about that just now, and I'm tightening up the tension on the stretch wrap. If it's not hard to pull that wrap off the roll, then your bundles will not stay tight. So now let's talk about the subject of the video, which is how many bundles do you get in a cord, and how many bundles can you do in an hour? And that is going to have some variation, but I noticed the numbers I got were fairly similar to what I've heard from other people. Now, when I do a time test like this, I do not try to see how fast I can work, because I don't think that is very relevant. I think the most relevant number would be how many bundles can you do per hour working at a normal, reasonable pace that you would do on any other day. So that's how I try to approach it. And in this instance, I had a couple things I messed around with, and I was getting the hang of it, but I did 30 bundles in 40 minutes. If you do the math on that, that tells you I would do 45 bundles per hour. In this case, that 30 bundles represented 1/3 of a cord, which would mean I would get 90 bundles per cord, and it would take me 2 hours to do those 90 bundles. And I think that's the most useful information you can get in terms of how profitable can you be making bundled firewood. Now, those numbers don't quite add up, but they're close enough to basically say they account for a little bit of waste when there were a couple pieces that weren't usable, and I think that's just something that is going to happen. You're never going to get perfect wood all the time. But when I'm talking about discrepancies, I mean that 1 quart of firewood should be 128 cubic feet. As you can see, I filled this one up to the top, which is 1 1/3 cubic feet. So if I got 90 bundles at 1 1/3 each would be 120 cubic feet. Means pretty close to the 128 cubic feet that are actually in a bundle. When I was at the Paul Bunyan show, there was a manufacturer there of an electric bundler where you just pushed one button and it major wraps. Very nice machine, but maybe a little overpriced for the average person just getting started. I think that is the type of machine you might invest in once you've proven to yourself that there is a market in your area and that it's worth it to you to sell these bundles. For now, that's why I started with the least expensive firewood bundler that I could find. But the manufacturer of that electric bundler told me that he would get about 50 bundles an hour, and my test was coming up with about 45 per hour. So really, I don't think cranking that handle is costing you a bunch of time. So let's talk about money and whether or not I think this is worth it. And I think it's absolutely worth it if you can find a customer, which is what I'm going to be doing this week, contacting some local businesses and asking them if they have an interest in setting up a stand outside their business to sell these bundles. Normally, I would have sold the firewood in this tote for $65. But instead, we've got 30 bundles at $6 a piece. So turning $65 of wood into $180 of wood in 40 minutes is a great return on investment, even though there is other time involved, like the time spent creating labels, delivering it, the fuel spent, things like that. A very nominal cost in shrink wrap. So it really comes down to whether or not you can find a consistent market to sell the wood or not. There's another elephant in the room for me when it comes to selling these bundles. I've listened to quite a few other people talk about their experience with selling bundles, and a lot of them are selling them direct to the consumer because they're in a good location. And then some have contracts set up with the local store. Selling direct makes the numbers work in terms of all the information I've already given you. But if you're giving a cut of the profits from the sales to the business that is selling them for you, it's less profitable. I'm trying to imagine what that arrangement looks like. If maybe you're selling them to the business for $5 a tote so that they can sell them for $7. Is that a big enough slice for the company? I have no idea, and I don't really know how to start that negotiation. So I may reach out and see if anyone else in the business wants to give me an explanation or a little bit of insight on their pricing model. It really does seem like your location, where you live, makes a big difference, or if you happen to know someone who lives in a great location for a roadside stand. If there's anything I've learned from running small businesses, it's that as soon as you get started, you will find roadblocks that you didn't anticipate. When I got down to the bottom of the tote, there was a lot of slab wood that I did not want to put in bundles, so I grabbed out of a nearby tote and I had to estimate how many bundles would have been left. And I really think that gave us a very close estimate. What we have here is 1/3 of a cord of bundled firewood. A little bit more work than I thought it would be. A little bit more hassle dealing with the bundles, but not too bad really. It didn't take very long. Anyway, all the information I could say right now, if I did my job, is already in the video. So I appreciate you taking time to watch this video. I'll put links on the screen to a couple more of our videos, and I'll see you next time.